is rising, the sky is blue. Good morning, grand risings, let's see what's new. It's that time of day for Sonia and crew. Good morning, grand risings. It's time to wake up with Sonia Poulton. Cup of coffee in hand, starting fresh with the beans. Wake up, sleepy heads, and shake off those dreams. Good morning, grand risings. It's time to wake up with Sonia Poulton. If you want the truth, you know where to be. With Sonia and crew, where everyone's free. Good morning, grand risings. It's time to wake up with Sonia Poulton.
And good morning and grand risings to you. How are you all, you wonderful, magnificent, fantastic people? It is exactly 9 a.m. GMT. And thank you to our lovely, wonderful, adorable Markuson for the full and edited version of Good Morning Grand Rising. And good morning to you all. How are you? I hope you are well. This is Friday, the 7th of February, 2025. And welcome to the show that says, "Not today, Satan," and means it with my whole chest. How are you all? I hope you're all fine, alive and well and fantastic. And hello, Elaine. Morning, everyone. Elaine was the winner of Health Freedom UK Salve Balm, whatever you want to call it. It smells amazing. Looking forward to seeing what it can do. Thank you. Whoop, whoop. Good morning, Craig and Teresa and Kravos. Greetings to you. And good morning, Maria and Gwyneth and Sharon and Peter. And that's live, not as we know it. And Lisa and Tara and Soul Sound and Crazy Bunny, our two magnificently wonderful mods. Yes, we love them indeed. Yes, we do. And how are you, Elaine and Lenticular and Chris and more besides, and Franco and Mel's and Healing the Silence and you name it, and Cavan and Valerie and Catherine and Amber and Annabelle. Annabelle says, "Morning, Sonia. Please watch UK Columns expose on Monday, 3rd of February regarding Dr. Dowie Evans from Lucy Letby case, Roland Bonnie Lewis case from 2008. It's mind-blowing. I shall watch it." And Cavan says, "I hear we have another cold snap on the horizon." And good morning, Cheryl. Good morning, everybody. Grand rising with my coffee fix. Wonderful to hear from you all. I hope you're well. What a phenomenal week. Insane, intense, phenomenal week. So what is on Wake Up today? We will be joined very shortly by midwife Paul Golden on this week's huge Lucy Letby developments. I'll also be joined by Lubna of Greenwich Palestine Action Group, and we will be talking about the importance of divestment to Israel. That's not investment, that's divestment. It's the opposite direction, right? And also Trump's horrific pledge this week to ethnically cleanse Palestine. I said it. Mainstream media won't call it what it is, but I did. He can dress it up any way he wants, but we all know what is going on here. And now it's become absolutely abundant and apparent how much investment the Israeli lobby have invested in Trump's campaign. And we'll also be joined by old mucker, psychotherapist John Hendon, who will be talking about the very deliberate breakdown of the family unit. And we'll be talking Trump's executive orders, the dancing boys of Afghanistan. Vauxhall Luton is closing. The truth behind Aldi's £10 entry store. Jay-Z drops his lawsuit. We'll also be looking as ever at Geoengineering Watch because nobody else will. And also, it's interesting this week in Grammy Week to see how Hollywood threw its once golden boy Drake to the wolves. Oh yeah, sparing nothing. And we'll be looking at the fake accounts on X that are reveling in dividing us all. And final say today is one step in front of the other. We can do that, can't we? Plus all the usual good stuff, viewer emails and live chat. We do news differently around here. And you know why? Because someone had to. How are you all in the comments? How are you all? My local, soon-to-be bankrupt Wirral Council needs to divest from Israel, says Paul. Well, you might want to get together with our 9:30 a.m. guest. That's what you might want to do. So let's have a look. Trump executive orders. Well, we live in such a screwed up world that when a leader says no, men cannot pretend to be women, men cannot access women's spaces, we act as if that leader is the second coming. And Trump's executive order, which is trans-identified males can no longer be in women's sports. And legacy media, completely biased on this issue, particularly the BBC. The headlines have been that trans people are barred from sports. That's a lie. That's actually a lie. The truth is that sports is sex segregated for a reason. And this new executive order is simply taking males out of female sports, which is exactly what should happen. And you see, the thing is, politicians around the world have gaslit us so badly, right, that it's almost like we've been given something back. No, this is the insane thing. We've been literally gaslit from here to eternity, that when we're given a smidgy thing like this, it's almost like taking our eye off the ball from the fact that mRNA is on the table, from the fact that if Trump had his head further up the rectum of Netanyahu, it would be coming out Netanyahu's mouth. That's what's going on, right? That is what's going on. And so we'll be looking at that with our guest at 9:30. And what about Peter Mandelson getting a bit prickly in his new role, and especially when asked about his special relationship with Jeffrey Epstein? Mandelson actually told a reporter to F off when quizzed about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Oh, so he's a little bit touchy about that then, is he? I wonder why. Of course, Peter Mandelson is the UK ambassador to the US, as far as we know at this stage. And he's going to be living in a fabulous Grace and Favour apartment in Washington. And Keir Starmer specially selected Peter Mandelson for this one. And it could be because Peter Mandelson and Trump have rather a lot in common, including a special relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Could it be that? Must have hit a nerve. Absolutely. Have the media not realised yet that nobody believes them anymore? Reba says, happy Friday, everybody. Happy Friday. It is Marco. Yes, it's the typical give a dog a bone tactic to distract from the real story. Absolutely. New fuss. We are in development for Wednesday's show. I'm very much looking forward to it myself. I really am. And not mincing your words today. No, I am not, Paul. No time to mince my words at all. And if you're on a waiting list for hospital treatment in the UK, be reassured, particularly in Scotland, that your taxpayer money is being royally peed up against the wall. NHS in Fife, Scotland, is currently spending taxpayer money to defend a man's right to watch female employees strip. You heard me. In Peggy versus Fife, NHS and Dr. B. Upton is an employment tribunal this week, has been eye-opening to see what various authorities are still getting away with in the UK in the name of the whole gender spiel. Anyone still pushing for men to be able to undress with women is a predator. Peggy's a nurse. Dr. Upton is, well, a doctor and trans-identified and seems to think everything is hunky-dory to be able to undress in front of female employees. Not having it. Not having it. And the bottom line is this: anyone still pushing for men to be able to undress in front of women is a predator, full stop. And that includes enabling predatory behavior, such as what the NHS and other authorities are doing. It's outrageous. It's outrageous. And what about the billions of dollars that have been spent in USAid and now stopped by Trump and Musk? Oddly, it would appear that America has been funding news agencies and organizations around the world, including the BBC, CNN, Politico, NBC, and more. No wonder Biden and Harris enjoyed such great PR coverage all the time. In fact, USAid was funding over 6,200 journalists across 707 media outlets and 279 media NGOs, including 9 out of 10 media outlets in Ukraine, reports WikiLeaks. What about that then? What about that then? Outrageous, absolutely outrageous. And it's so what's interesting is this whole kind of like this week, it's all kicked off. It's all kicked off regarding Trump and Israel, etc. And what we have discovered is that latest analysis has showed that £230 million in spending by pro-Israel groups has benefited the Donald Trump campaign since 2020. Don't tell me I haven't got any tissue here. Or am I going to have to wipe my lips? Right. I wonder why. Yes, I wonder why indeed. And it's UK column, I'm going to mention them again, points out that the UK's equivalent to USAid is the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. And the UK column created a searchable database of their spending. But after it went live, the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office stopped providing the data for updates. There you go. Not too much transparency there. Not too much transparency. And what about Kash Patel, hoping to be confirmed as director of the FBI? Came over a bit shady at his committee hearing this week. Didn't deny his links and financial profits. He was asked about his involvements with people like James Comey and Christopher Wray, and asked, do you have any plans to investigate them and links to Trump? And he said, I have no plans in going backwards. Wait, what? And he refused to say yes or no whether he had made money from supplements he promoted as an alternative to C19 treatments. So he sounds a little bit compromised and a little bit shady. And I know everybody's saying that he is the future, but, got to be a bit more transparent, I reckon. And he had previously said, we're going to go after the media. And when he was asked about that, he said, no, he wasn't. So make of what you will. Oh, my washing machine is done. All shady, says Abster. Everything is shady these days. Shady, 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 shady. Indeed it is. Indeed it is. But this has been, as I say, a very, very interesting week. And rest in peace to all the innocent victims of the Swedish shooter. The terrorist behind the Sweden school shooting is a 35-year-old man called Rickard Anderson. We live in a world now where as soon as there is a heinous attack, ignorant people rush to claim it's an Islamic attack. Step forward, this week's ignoramus. Yes, that's you, Alex Phillips, presenter on Talk TV or Talk Radio. I can't remember which one it is now. I think Talk TV failed. Yes, she's a media commentator who makes Katie Hopkins appear downright cuddly. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And she wrote unconfirmed reports that a high school shooting in Sweden is yet more gang violence. The shooter is allegedly Syrian, his victim Eritrean. This follows daily bomb attacks since the start of 2025. But Alex, why did you delete that tweet? We know why, because you're spreading misinformation. That's why. And there's such silence on X because X is basically, it's Elon Musk's mind. So X works best when Muslims are on the rampage, but doesn't work well when it's a 35-year-old white man of Swedish descent. Don't work at all. Nobody wants to know about that. Nobody wants to know about that at all. And I wonder why that is. Right, shortly, I'm going to be joined by my first guest. I sincerely hope so. Well, I can't see him. I might have to work through this story on my own if he doesn't show up soon. So how are you, wonderful people? Penny is in Sweden. Penny, very, very sorry about your national tragedy that has taken place. Absolutely horrendous. I've been to Sweden before. I have a lot of Swedish friends. I actually, in my 20s, my gang of friends was me, one British woman, and all Swedish women. And so I've been to Gothenburg and various places in Sweden. It's beautiful, beautiful country, and great tragedy. No problem, faux boil. Do it. X has already been chipped. I can listen to Alex for about 10 seconds. I know. Ooh, cringe sets in. I know. Mel's, you're not missing anything. Not missing anything at all. And I am now. James loves Alex Phillips as much as you love me, or as much as I love her. You can wipe your mouth with the truth, Sonia. I might need to, guys. Bit concerned that my first guest is not here, so I'm going to start working through this because we don't have any time to waste today. Question the narrative. This week, very, very interesting. Oh, I DJ'd in Gothenburg, spent a week there in 1993, says London Lady. This week, very interesting. Actually, do you know what? I'm gonna hold this for a second and hope that he turns up. It would be disappointing if he doesn't, but I'm absolutely capable of working through this on my own if I need to. Busy day today, Judith. It is such a busy day today. You have no idea. And very upsetting, by the way. Let me just pick this up if I can. First of all, it's upsetting. I've made a right pig's ear of this. No, I am going to start working through this because I've got a funny feeling he's not turning up, which is a bit disappointing, and I don't understand why, but there you go. Sometimes that happens. Anyway, this week, huge, major press conference regarding Lucy Letby. Lucy Letby being the former neonatal nurse who has been convicted of murdering 7 babies and convicted of the attempted murder of a further 7 babies. And so this week, huge press conference on Tuesday with Dr. Shuley, MP David Davis, Lucy Letby's new barrister. And what they've done is they've highlighted 14 hospital failures, which experts claim exonerate Lucy Letby. Now, I've not seen anything like this. Look at these headlines. This is phenomenal. There were no murders. Evidence doesn't support murder of any kind. Letby did not kill a single baby, say experts. And all of that is like huge. When you see headlines like that, you have to know that a sea change is absolutely taking place right now. And what we have is these experts. So Dr. Shuley, it should be pointed out that it was his evidence that was partly used to convict Lucy. And Dr. Shuley was part of the appeal to do with Lucy Letby, and that came to nothing, sadly. And what we're discovering bit by bit is bad medical care, natural causes led to the deaths of babies said to have been harmed by Lucy Letby. And I like the way that Dr. Shuley began the conference. It was so brilliantly respectful of the parents, because obviously there's a whole lot of heartbroken, grieving parents to do with this. It's a lot of babies there, right? And so it is heartbreaking. And Dr. Shuley was very respectful and pointing out that this is about getting to the truth. This is not about in any way disrespecting the parents or underestimating the absolute pain they must be feeling from what has taken place. And it is heartbreaking. They don't want her to be innocent, Robert. That is a fact. But this week is huge. It's absolutely huge. So what's actually going to happen is the CCRC, the Criminal Cases Review Commission, will be looking again at her case. They're going to be reviewing her case. I'm here to tell you, and mark my words, if they're not careful, Lucy Letby's unsafe convictions is going to bring down the British criminal justice system and show it for what it is. And it is failing, and it has failed for a very long time. Most recently, we've seen, for example, Andrew Malkinson, who was in prison for 17 years for a rape he did not commit. And yes, Kath, NHS cover-up using Lucy as the scapegoat. And that really is what we're talking about around here. And we've done quite a lot of coverage on the Lucy Letby case because, first of all, we have a lot of viewers who were really unhappy because they realized there was a problem, because we have smart viewers. We have smart viewers who don't just accept headlines. They don't. And so here's what happened is that David Davis, who is actually, I don't necessarily agree with a lot of his politics, but he's been brilliant when it comes to miscarriages of justice and anything that needs raising awareness on. And he's a very good MP for that. And he has been doing that for a very, very long time. It's his thing in Parliament. So he's headed this all up. And the panel came together and they've got all of these brilliant expert witness reports. And they're from all around the world, from neonatal experts from all around the world. And the Lucy Letby, I am in no doubt whatsoever, is a scapegoat. She's a scapegoat for a failing NHS. At the time that she was scapegoated for this, the NHS was going through a particularly bad time and has done ever since. And this was as a consequence of running on from Tony Blair, as a consequence of the continued privatisation of the NHS while pretending to us that it's fully open to everybody, right? And so what they were doing is that they were depleting the NHS, and people like Lucy Letby were on the receiving end of that. And she was having to pick up the slack for a failing NHS. And there were all manner of problems rather at the Countess of Chester Hospital, which is where she was, and accused of these murders and these attempted murders. But there was also a gang of 4 people who were absolutely intent on railing against her, and they themselves must be subject to many questions now, many questions. But the conference this week cited 14 hospital failures, 14 hospital failures. And it should be pointed out that at this moment in time, the Thirlwell inquiry is going on, and it's got a slight pause before it restarts again in March for the summary. And the Thirlwell inquiry is taking place at Liverpool Town Hall in England, and it's headed up by Lady Thirlwell. And it is to look at how Lucy Letby managed to get away with murdering all these babies. Well, of course, there's a problem now with that Thirlwell inquiry. And believe me when I say this, in 30 plus years of journalism, I've never seen so many people who are prepared to risk their reputation, put their head above the parapet and say this woman is suffering from an unsafe conviction. At the very least, her original convictions are so poor that she should be subject to a retrial. Now, it's very interesting because you have to also remember that there are people within mainstream media who don't want anything to change, right? They want to be proven right, that when they went after her and demonized her, they want things to remain as they are. And I noted yesterday in the Daily Mail, there was somebody had leaked out that Lucy Letby was whining, I don't want to go through another retrial. That'll take ages. Who said she said that? Come on now. And then they also seem to team her up with Batesh Batui, I think it is. And she is the stepmother of poor little Sarah Sharif, who was murdered by her father, stepmother, and her uncle was also complicit in this. And Daily Mail is saying, oh, Lucy Letby and Batish are now great friends, and Lucy Letby is moaning, making Lucy Letby sound really ungrateful. I don't believe any of that. That is the continued demonization. Jan, I put a comment on that article asking them to take it down. It was disgusting. And they're doing it because they're trying to cover their backs, aren't they? Because they've done the whole podcast of Lucy Letby. And actually one of their writers has been so gung-ho, Lucy Letby is guilty. But we should be aware that according to the Inquiries Act, the power to suspend, this is Rex versus Lucy Letby, full disclosure on X, excellent source of information to do with Lucy Letby, says a gentle reminder, according to the Inquiries Act, the power to suspend the Thirlwell public inquiry lies with 10 Downing Street. Parliament has the power. Parliament has the power to suspend the Thirlwell inquiry. And they should. They absolutely should at this stage, because the sheer volume of people with decent reputations to lose, and that's key here. That's key. This is not just anybody off the street saying Lucy Letby is innocent, which also has its own weight, not to take anything away from that. But these are people with actual reputations in neonatology, and who have an understanding in all areas, actually, including politics, and they are prepared to put their reputations on the line for this. And I think that's worth something. And I think Colin, one of our viewers, summed it up and said, whenever anyone is unjustly punished for something they didn't do, it actually hurts me. Deep empathy, I suppose, but my deep anger comes from the fact that someone else is walking away free from accountability. And I think that is relevant. No, Stephen, MSM do not like admitting when they're wrong. Yes, Steve, there is much more coming out about that. I've got to be careful what I read, obviously, because I don't want any more defamation issues on my door. So David Davis said in an interview, I've had 4 nurses say they wanted to give evidence on behalf of Lucy, but they were told by their supervisors, their managers, it would not be good for them. And so they didn't. And I have to say that I have total admiration for Dr. Shu Lee, the way that he presented this on Tuesday. And it's online. I'll put a link in the description to the press conference, was actually brilliant. It was brilliant to watch. It was brilliant and heartening because he did it with such absolute respect for the importance of accurate and correct information, but also for respect for the parents who are grieving. And again, I have to respect that. And I do respect that a lot. And Dr. Shu Lee, for those who aren't familiar, he's a retired Canadian doctor and professor. And he's not happy. And neither should he be, because they inaccurately used his information, his research to convict her. And when he got involved in the appeal, well, we all know what happened with the appeal. It was just dismissed. Shows how callous medical. Yeah, he was great to us too, Judith. Absolutely formidable. Didn't one of the experts pay his own fare to attend the meeting this week? Yes, Robert. That was Dr. Shu Lee, and I think all of them did. And that is also tells you so much. These people are not there for the money. They're there for justice. And more power to their elbow. I absolutely love that. We need more of that. And some of the experts, by the way, are not only experts in neonatal medicine, plus there's an engineering specialist who could examine claims made that Miss Letby had poisoned patients with insulin. And honestly, these are some of the best qualified people that could possibly come forward. The reality is her defense failed hugely. Dr. Mike Hall, as one example, is a distinguished neonatologist. He saw almost the whole trial and was ready to testify, bafflingly did not give evidence on behalf of Lucy Letby. Why didn't he? Why didn't he? Nobody did. Nobody did. No wonder Lucy Letby replaced her defense team. Who wouldn't replace them with that kind of awfulness? Police belong to Covens. We know about the Masons. We do. Yes, great to listen to someone honest for a change. Indeed, it was, Judith. It was absolutely wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. And I think we're now, this is headed on an important road. And so this actually, it really is looking increasingly like she's going to bring the whole lot down, right? And that is the legal establishment, the medical establishment, the police force, the CPS, the CCRC, right? Professor Shu Lee, he flew 4,000 miles to tell parents in Cheshire why their babies died because he cares enough. He cares enough. And we all know that some of the doctors in this who were against Lucy have gone on to become something of media stars. And that is not at all where that panel was coming from. That panel was all about justice as opposed to attention. And that the same cannot be said for some of the doctors who have since come up regarding this. And Paul is here, but unfortunately, Paul, I've only got a couple of minutes with you. You were due on at 9:10.
So sorry, Sonia. Very big apologies for that.
No worries. Tell us what you can in 5 minutes. Paul Golden,
Okay.
by the way, everybody, midwife mediator, joining me for a very quick comment on this.
Okay, so I spent over 30 years working in neonatal units as well as midwifery. There's a breakdown in communication between maternity and paediatrics that was identified by the panel of experts. I see this as not just looking at one or two aspects, it's looking at the whole case. And so the whole case is unsafe. It was not proven beyond a reasonable doubt. There are so many doubts. And I've just been looking at other cases. There was a case for criminal manslaughter for a woman who died after a cesarean or during a cesarean. Her name is Cappuccini. It was about 10 years ago in Kent. And they took a case, the Crown prosecution took a case against the anaesthetist, and the judge had to say to end the case that it was an unsafe case. It should not go before the jury. This is what could and should have happened. Judge James Goss could and should have stopped the case, said this is not for a jury to decide. The CPS have not met the requirements of Galbraith. And two basic things of Galbraith test is it has to be in the public interest and there has to be sufficient evidence. They never tested their own evidence. Wow. Anybody looking at the prosecution so-called expert witness didn't use logical analysis to test and weigh the veracity of what was being said. It was hypothesis. It was just dreamed up ideas. Well, if she didn't inject air into the stomach, she must have done it in the arm. The reason that motivated me to write a book about this was because these are so implausible. I've worked in units, you could not and would not be able to inject so much air into a baby's belly. You know, some of these babies were extremely vulnerable, premature, very low birth weight. Some had other pre-existing things from the placenta, from the pregnancies. And when they were born, they're very challenged. And some of the things didn't appear straight away, like their clotting situation for one particular baby. And that gradually became more apparent, or the liver bleeding problem was not instantly apparent, but gradually became apparent. Nothing to do with Lucy Letby. So it's madness that everything was focused on her. It's madness that there was a case taken as far as it was. I do criticize the judge. I'm sorry to do that. You know, everybody's a compassionate human being. We're all doing the best we can. But CPS and this whole over-regulation, over-prosecution is based on win at all costs.
Yes.
And that's where things really fail. Victims of this include Lucy Letby now, and it should go now to the Court of Appeal. I think it only takes one good judge, because so often bad things happen when good people do nothing, but it takes a judge to stand up and say, this will be worse if we don't deal with it now. So yes, it has massive implications for NHS and the legal professions, but it's only going to get worse if they don't get on top of it now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually huge and it's significant. This week was a game changer, I feel. Like that whole panel, I spent much of it, Paul, watching open mouth, because Dr. Shuley is a formidable character and such grace and humility. His absolute first priority was the parents and the grief they're suffering and all of that. It was so beautifully handled. But I'm in no doubt whatsoever, this is a game changer. And the thing is, her case is it's like at the forefront now of showing the problems within our criminal justice system, isn't it?
Absolutely. And the criminal justice system wants to have certainty. So when it makes a mistake, it won't admit it's made a mistake. It just wants to carry on. Actually, it would be much more transparent, accountable. And we all accept that life is not a certainty. There are things we have to adapt and survive.
Yeah, and it needs to be done. The thing is that some people, they get so upset, don't they? They're like, oh no, keep her in. She's guilty as anything. But half the time, these people couldn't possibly have looked at the evidence, because the evidence absolutely suggests otherwise, doesn't it?
It does now. It's a rational, logical analysis in the report, and there's a bigger report to come. But life is emotional. People do get emotional. But what we're doing is projecting, oh, if my baby died and somebody had harmed it, I'd want them in jail for life. But they're not rational. They're not logical. They're not looking at the facts. The facts speak for themselves. I think it's very plain to the Court of Appeal judges that this is new evidence. The previous evidence was unsafe. The conviction is unsafe. It should be quashed. Then you've got the option of having a mistrial, but CPS would be very ill-advised to retry the case in the light of having 14 fantastic expert witnesses that would help the defence, and nobody really is going to help the prosecution.
I'm so glad you were able to join us. Doesn't matter that it was only for a few minutes, Paul. I'm really grateful that you were able to.
Big
And
apologies.
no,
Thank you.
not at all. No, not at all. I'm really glad. It was really important to get you in one way or another. It really was, because I think this is a game changer this week. I really do. And I want to keep you, you to keep me in the loop and vice versa, because obviously this is a story that I believe in, and I believe in because I hate all injustice. And I believe this is a very serious, clear injustice. Paul, if nothing else, it's absolutely apparent now that these are unsafe convictions.
Yes. Not the only one. There's others. They all need looking at. I'm always an optimist, and I was an optimist that she will be released at some point. I now actually would move that forward to hopefully sometime this year.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much, Paul. You are, of course, the midwife mediator, Paul Golden, who's been on with us before talking about Lucy Letby. Paul is not just a midwife, he's also an author, also a legal advisor as well. So you understand this in the round, which is absolutely brilliant. Yes?
I've been in the court so much, and looking at that other case of Cappuccini, there's very good logical analysis by the judge, and that's not present in the case with Lucy Letby. So it's very good to compare cases, to go to courts, to sit in on them, and you'll see good and bad cases and good and bad rationales provided.
We will indeed. Take good care of yourself, everybody.
Thank
This is Paul
you.
Golden.
Take care of
Lovely
yourself,
to see you.
Sonia. Bye.
Thank you, Paul. Take care. Brilliant. Brilliant to have him with us. Yes, I understand that Armin says, hi, Paul. Hope you come back again. Cheers, Paul. I understand, and that this is a situation that creates great upset and hurt with a lot of people. Miscarriages of justice do. Miscarriages of justice do. The whole point about Wake Up is we fight against injustice. And one of the most egregious injustices that I've seen this week is watching how much Donald Trump owes to Israel. And on that note, I want to bring in our next guest. Let me bring her in. There she is. Hello, Lubna. I think your microphone is... There you are. Good morning to you. Lubna from Greenwich Palestine Action Group. How are you this morning?
Good morning. I'm very well, thanks. Well, under the circumstances.
Under the circumstances, I get you. Thank you for being on with us. I want to show everybody a little clip of a video involving you to give them a taste of what we're dealing with. And I want to just kind of set a bit of background to this. This is at a Greenwich Council meeting. And tell people a little bit about what was going on at that meeting.
Well, for the last 15 months, we've been attending several of the full council meetings, in short, asking them to divest from Israel, which they invest through the local government pension scheme. So these are council employees, deferred wages, many of which were completely unaware that this is what their funds are being invested in. We've been calling on Greenwich Council for them to divest and to acknowledge the genocide of the Palestinians that's currently taking place. And in this meeting in particular, the day before, 26 of our own relatives were slaughtered in this current genocide in Gaza. And we asked them for a simple 1 minute silence to acknowledge Palestinian lives. And needless to say, it wasn't respected, to say the least. And we have this constant contempt for democracy when it comes to Palestine. And of course, the denial of what's indeed taking place.
I watched this video and I saw you and I actually burst into tears, and I'm quite a tough cookie. I've been a journalist for a very, very long time, but what you said touched my heart so very seriously. I'm going to play it. Let's give everybody a little flavour of what took place there. And the lady standing up is Lubna.
Never again, that means now. And it's going to be a disgrace that's happening. Our family are being massacred. Massacred, and we're still here. Doing nothing. Nothing. My family are being massacred.
Good for you. But that, you can hear that. That's like the very depth of your soul has been dredged up as you're saying that, because this is not a theoretical scenario to you. This is not a headline that you're reading in a newspaper. This is very real to you. You said to me the other day, your father wants to return to Palestine. And that all of that is really heartbreaking. How many relatives have you now lost in this genocide?
A total of 56 relatives, and that's in Gaza, and now our family in the West Bank are also being targeted. What we're watching unfolding there is, it's like an extension of the genocide of Gaza. It's like we're going to have a rest on Gaza, and now we're going to strike the West Bank.
Yeah. Exactly. It was powerful short order, Cook. It touched me greatly because, and the thing is, sometimes we're reduced to doing these things because of these awful, awful people in power. Talk to us about the amount of money we're talking about here. I was tweeted this morning, I didn't actually realize we're talking that sheer volume of money. Talk us through it.
Well, the last reports issued it, so you can find this on PSC's website. They have published this with several boroughs. So if you're not in Greenwich, you can find the investments made for your boroughs on there under their pension fund list. But we've seen the new reports generated for 25. It was 4.6 billion in total nationally, and now over 12 billion. Our Greenwich Council, it was 43 million, now over 61 million, and that's our borough alone.
That's an extraordinary amount of money, though. I mean, I can't even get my head around that. I really can't. And so the idea, of course, is that they're continuing to fund Israel, which also funds the attacks against Palestine. And how are Greenwich tackling this?
Well, they're not. And this is what we're trying to do, is to force them and to force every other borough to divest. I mean, they claim to be an anti-apartheid zone. Huh. The irony, and many boroughs did actually sign the Anti-Apartheid Movement Declaration 1983, and number 9 of that policy states that all other areas you must ensure in the case of a future apartheid that you will follow and support the BDS, as was done against the South African apartheid. And it's just, I'm finding this continuous, it's like a discrimination that takes place. It's like the selective racism is what we're ultimately finding here. So yes, it's for one set, this is acceptable, for another set when the world said never again.
Yes.
Missed a bit about the Palestinians. Is that the exception to the rule?
Yeah, exactly. I'm coming back at me for some reason. Have you got a computer on with showing us? I'm not sure.
No.
Oh, don't worry. It doesn't matter. You received an apology following that meeting, didn't you?
Yes, we did. We had 2 councillors. One accused us because in that same meeting there was a memorial for all other victims of Holocausts. And as we stood to pay our respects, we were goaded by two councillors. One, that they refused to, of course, stand up, refused to do that, and instead accused us of not standing for the rabbi when we did, and accused us of anti-Semitism. It's the usual, that suppression stick. It's like we're going to accuse you of this to deflect from the reality of what's taking place, so we can avoid speaking about it, we can avoid dealing with it. We're aware of this tactic that's taking place in one of many areas of suppression that everyone's finding, and it must be challenged, because if it goes unchallenged, it sets a continuous precedent to continue the censorship of us, of our voices and our campaign. So we did challenge it. We, of course, had the footage and exposed the fact that this is a discrimination against the Palestinian, and it's deflecting, and it's a breach of councillor code of conduct. That was acknowledged by their legal team, and we were called in for a meeting to ask what we'd like to be done. And ultimately we said we want them to stop with these bogus and spurious allegations against us in attempts to censor us. We will still speak out. We're very much aware of the difference between Semitism and Zionism and the conflation that everyone's placing to silence us. So we put that forward as a breach of councillor code of conduct, and we did in fact receive both a written and verbal apology.
As indeed you should.
Everyone needs to challenge this. This is part of the struggle.
But the thing is, what value words really? What we need is some actual action, and that is, as you say, the divestment. That is what needs to take place. It's absolutely outrageous. Most people have no idea how much money we're actually spending supporting Israel. I mean, that is the reality. Most people have no idea. And this week, of course, it's been put again on the world stage with the coming together of Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu. And I literally struggled to watch them on the screen because, I mean, first of all, when I see Donald Trump pushing in a chair for Benjamin Netanyahu, I have to know that this man is up to his eyeballs. He's completely compromised by Israel, isn't he? There's no doubt about it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's all part of the colonialist project, you know, and how they're above all the laws. You know, they're not a member of the ICC. They are established, they are war criminals. And, you know, the Palestinians have been dehumanized for such a period of time that it's like our lives don't matter. And this, again, you know, it's like his real estate project. He doesn't care. He's almost like this crazy maker narcissist. And there's no meaning to our lives, you know, to just, yeah, we'll just wipe them out. We'll mass exile them.
That's right. Move them along. And the thing is, the reason I've used this imagery is just to show quite simply that they may change presidents, but the whole thing still continues on. And Donald Trump has actually had immense investment from the Israeli lobby, in particular the Edelmans, as one example. And in fact, Donald Trump went so far as to say that the Edelmans next to his staff visited him at the White House more than practically anybody. That already tells us the immense power that the Israeli lobby were already lining up for this particular president. And did you hear Nigel Farage saying, oh, yeah, great idea, we'll have casinos in Gaza? How crazy and disrespectful are these people? When you hear stuff like that, I mean, it makes me want to headbutt walls, but it must really hurt you that there's such idiocy being put on a world stage like this.
I still find it really shocking and surprising that people like that can even run a country. And you think of all the battles that took place, and we fought for, you know, basic human rights, and to have those applied, it's just, and then you get someone like this just comes along with this mindless, senseless, you know, lack of empathy and care for anyone else across the world. And the sad fact of that matter is, you know, this is a case that involves all people, everyone who stands, you know, for the basic principles of human rights. Because if this isn't tackled now, no one will ever be safe under this. And these colonialist imperialist projects must be brought to an end. This cannot be allowed to continue. This is something that will affect everyone. And if Trump was to have his same rules apply to him and every other colonialist occupier, then they should ultimately be the first on those boats. You know, this is, let's send everyone out, even what they're doing in America to immigrants.
Right, exactly.
If anyone should be on those boats, it's the colonizers themselves.
Well, and here's the thing. Well, here's the thing that's interesting. First of all, Donald Trump talked as if he had absolute authority to just decide what he wants to do with Gaza. Well, that is against so many international codes. I wouldn't even
Yeah.
know where to start, right? He simply can't just turn over Gaza to the US for land. It's not his property to do it. And it is correct me if I'm wrong, but the other thing is I cannot see Palestinians saying, oh, yeah, we're going to go off because isn't this what happened before 1948? And isn't that what then happened when Israel then assumed more land? Isn't it a similar situation? Have I got that wrong?
No, it's like another Nakba, another mass expulsion of the Palestinian people, and one that they do not have a right. They do not have a right. They didn't in the first instance to give away another man's land, and then persecute us for ultimately opening our homes and saying, yeah, we will take those people that you have mass expelled, and now we're paying that price. And again, it's just this continual dismissal of our rights, as they call us human animals. I don't mind the animals, to be honest. I prefer
No,
them
exactly. Most
But
animals behave better than humans these days. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, the thing is, a lot of people have said to me that really America is Trump's Greater Israel project. That's what's really happening here. Is that your sense as well?
Absolutely. I mean, they've both made quite clear their intent for it, even since they announced this ceasefire. I was very apprehensive about that taking place. I didn't expect it to go beyond the first phase. There would be blame games, and that would be shifted on to someone else as a matter of fault for them to continue ultimately the genocide of the Palestinians. So we're either looking at that or the forced expulsion of Palestinians. But either way, it's like the injustice of it almost beggars belief that you'll have to sit here watching it.
It's impossible to fully articulate how bad it is. And there's so much gaslighting going on. When Donald Trump is sat there talking about Gaza being the toughest place to live, hell on earth, full of death, he sat next to the person who has enabled all this, who has carried all this out. And I tell you what, if the evil personified exists, I saw it on the smirk on Benjamin Netanyahu's face. What a disgustingly wicked individual. And Donald Trump giving him the golden key to the White House. This is also significant, isn't it, Labna?
Yeah, it is. And, it's something, Palestinians are no stranger to injustice or dehumanization. It's something they've long lived with. And I think they've made very clear that they would rather die on that land than be forced exiled like our forefathers. My father was one of them, and they've learned from that. They know the moment they leave, they won't return. This is their home, this is their land, and they're willing to live or die there.
Yeah.
And they just want to live.
Some people have suggested to me that one of the reasons that Trump kept talking about Greenland recently is because that's one of the territories that he's planning on sending Palestinians to. Have you heard anything about that?
The guy is off his rocker. I just can't understand why he comes out with such lunacy. It's like, okay, you want to do something that's right, and just, okay, why don't you send the people back who, you've forced into another man's land here? Give them your home then. How would you like? I mean, there's a young Palestinian child who said that. Well, would you live under these conditions? Well, you take them back. You take the people back that you've displaced. Why do we have to be displaced? We're happy to live with everyone in peace as we once had. There's no problem with that.
What is the solution? What is the solution? Because obviously the two-state solution simply isn't working. So what is the solution?
In my opinion, the solution is a single democratic Palestinian state where anyone who truly acknowledges the Palestinian rights and people's rights and equal opportunities, this for us, we've never had a problem with the people, whether they're Jews, Christians, Muslims, and exactly equal rights. And this will only, in my opinion, ever be achieved as that, and such injustice has been committed against the Palestinians for so long. If they wanted to do something right, they could return that land to the Palestinians and live with them peacefully as they welcomed you into their homes, and just have that acknowledgement that they have rights too. And as long as a second Israeli apartheid state exists, so too will the illegal occupation and the oppression of the Palestinians under this apartheid state. How is that ever a solution for the Palestinians?
One of our commentators says, and I just want your answer to this. I don't agree with it, but I want your answer to it. And that is, he says, Kaman says, Palestine wants the annihilation of Israel. That's on their manifesto. How do you respond to that?
What I'd like is the dismantlement of an apartheid state, a dismantlement of this brutal occupation and the killing of our people. Yes, I would like that. I would like us to all have equal rights. And for those, we've seen, and what the irony is, Trump has exposed that 82% of Israelis are happy for us to be forcibly displaced. So who wants the annihilation of who? Have we not witnessed over the last 15 months and been clear enough with who's asking for that? We're not even calling for their deaths. We're not calling for harm to any people. We're calling to live in peace.
What I said, I promise you, I said to you, I'm not going to do a Piers Morgan on you and say, where do you stand on Hamas? Because we're not going to have that conversation. But obviously, there are people who are going to be saying, yeah, but what about Hamas? And so, and obviously, you and I know it's a proscribed group. We cannot support them in any way at all. But how do you respond to that? Because some people are saying there's no way Israelis can live next door to them.
You have to understand who Hamas is, and they are a result of occupation and oppression. You cannot occupy and oppress a people and not expect resistance. And for the last 76 years, it's as though the world has normalized so much so the suffering of the Palestinian people that their rights didn't matter. What about the thousands of children and women who have been held hostage illegally in their jails, tortured, abused, raped? Has anyone cared or spoken up for that? No. The moment there's an uprising, which they said that Gaza would be uninhabitable, and that was by several years ago. It's like a pressure tank, and they knew at some point this would explode. They knew that. And now I don't advocate, I would rather there's no killing. There's no need for resistance.
No.
But only the occupied and the oppressed people can claim self-defense. And only they have that right under international law. And of course, the West will demonize anyone who opposes their colonialist projects, as they've done with Mandela, Guevara, a long list of people who dare to oppose them. They're all terrorists,
That's right.
in this country.
That's right.
And so I will never condemn any oppressed and occupied people their right to resist, whether it's the Jews from the Warsaw Ghetto or the Palestinians in Gaza or the West Bank. We have that right.
Are you not? I mean, I was actually surprised that there wasn't more international condemnation of what took place between Trump and Netanyahu, but you're probably not surprised at all.
This is the mainstream propaganda machine. I think Malcolm X made that very clear when he referred to it in his speech of the Congo. The same thing, it's on repeat, and they will always dehumanize those they oppress, and it will always be their fault.
Marco said it's like being emotionally and physically abused in a relationship. You can be pushed to a point where eventually you fight back. And that is this whole idea that everything started on October the 7th is the ultimate form of gaslighting, as far as I can see. And the other thing that I find absolutely reprehensible is we shouldn't forget that Netanyahu himself is actually is wanted by the International Criminal Courts for war crimes. And yet he's being feted on one of the biggest stages in the world. And nobody seems to mention it, least of all the BBC.
No, they don't. And yet one day they'll sit here with their their crocodile commemorations for the Palestinians, as they have done with everyone else. And we see what's coming. And they did it to one of hundreds of the Irish understand very well, as well as South Africa and a long list of other places. And it's just something that we see repeatedly, time and time again. And we wonder if it will ever stop. And unless we challenge that, it won't.
The way Trump was talking, though, he's very much seeing everything through the eyes of a businessman, isn't he? Real estate, the Riviera, the amount of death there. And he talks about it like a holiday resort. I mean, I don't have a dog in the race as such, right? I don't have relatives involved, but I'm a human being and I know an injustice when I see it. But that must be like a stab in the heart when you watch stuff like that.
It is. It's, they're going to build their real estate project on the blood and the bones of the Palestinians who are still buried under there, being dug out by people with their hands. They're not even allowed to have the tools to dig them out. And it's absolutely harrowing. It's like the Palestinian graveyard, and they want to just build. They care not for the lives and the cost of that. It's just, again, this is all part of their money-making scheme.
It has to
It's
change.
disgraceful.
It has to change. The thing is that for a very long time, people haven't actually been aware of how much money is being sent or how much investment is taking place. Ian says London is overlooked in its role, and I think that is the case. And that's for a reason. That's for a reason that London is overlooked, because they want it to be overlooked. The powers that be don't want us to know. What can we do? How can we support you?
Well, the BDS campaign is probably one of our most powerful weapons here. As was an example with South African apartheid. Now, we, Greenwich Palestine Action, are taking a particular focus on the divestment campaign. There will be several campaign groups working on this in different boroughs. So I suggest, people want to get involved, go and join those campaign groups, and also put pressure on your local unions. If you're not in one, join one. We have model motions that we've generated to ask them to support the full, immediate and permanent divestment from Israel, not just partial, because what we're seeing is, unfortunately, there's pledges being made and people are considering this, a success. Look, we've had a pledge, which is, again, more empty words. Until it has taken place and they have divested, we cannot call anything a success. We'll claim that once we have succeeded, and we have to set an example with all other boroughs that the people will not accept this. And we have to keep that pressure on them and get the unions to step up. I don't know where they are, but we need the unions, and we need
unions are just failing. They're just the failure of our unions is actually astonishing, because the attacks on the British people over the last 5 years, the unions have just failed hand over fist, and they're still failing. One of the comments says, and I want you to answer this, and I don't believe this, again, I don't support this, but I'm asking you because we're all about transparency. And that is one of the comments from James says, why is this woman who hates the UK living in the UK? Do you hate the UK? I don't get that impression from you.
In short, I wouldn't be. I would have been born in my father's land in Palestine had it not been for this country and their involvement. I am here because of their occupation, because of their mass expulsion of my people.
And that is an important point, right? This whole idea that we have people like Trump, and they're going on about immigration, about mass immigration, we have to stop it. And yet they're looking at displacing a whole people right in front of our eyes. So they gaslight us, don't they? They want it always. And exactly that. We have to look at what we're doing in order for the fact that people are feeling the need to flee their lands in the first place. Right. Yeah. And we're not doing it. It's so frustrating, but it's all right. We've got this. I do believe, Lubna, that 2025 is a better year. I really do. And I'm hoping that there will be more transparency. I think people are waking up to what you're saying. Before, when I've had conversations like the one I'm having with you now, I've had much more pushback from people, but there's a lot of comments in your favor now. So bit by bit, unfortunately, that is at the cost of the blood shed by innocent people. But in the big grand scheme of things, in the big picture, people are waking up. You must be finding that.
I am, and there's an increasing solidarity. I mean, what has happened? I mean, people who didn't know Palestine or where it was now does, and they're becoming more and more aware of the situation, the brutality of it, and the history, most importantly, because this is the context that needs to be applied. As you said, it did not start on the 7th. We have to consider over 76 years of occupation and oppression that led to these things, and people are waking up. They are aware. I don't shy from these conversations with people. It's important to have those conversations. And to continue to fight against it, because it's not something that just affects Palestinians. This is everybody's basic human right.
Yeah. It is. It is. And we cannot continue to turn a blind eye to this. Not at all. Lubna, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I will make sure to put any relevant links in the description so people can find out where you are and support what you're doing. Thank you for being with us. Take good care of yourself.
Thank you so much.
Everybody, Lubna from the Greenwich Palestine Action Group. Wonderful stuff. Take care.
Bye-bye.
She shouldn't be having to come here and justify any of this stuff. This just shouldn't be happening, people. It shouldn't be happening. And thank you to lovely Kaylee, who put me in touch with Lubna. I do tell it as it is, Stephen, but I also am absolutely aware that everybody is entitled to their opinion around here. That's the important thing. And Craig, I have to agree with you that the Israelis have not only lost the moral war, they've lost the PR war as well, because Donald Trump can give them as many golden keys to the White House that he wants, but the world is watching. And honestly, I don't know about you, but Netanyahu gave Donald Trump a golden pager. No, I wouldn't be accepting a pager from a Netanyahu. That much I do know. Right, let's have a look at some of your comments. Ian says, awesome woman. Yep, 2 days, no chemtrails, says Jeanette. Well, I have got some chemtrails pictures for us shortly, Jeanette. Yes, I have. Isn't history, it's just one person's lifetime. What's that? Randy wants to know, was she single? I never got an answer. Randy, there might be a reason why you're called Randy. I don't know. Right. Do I have time to quickly look at something? I want to show you a funny meme that I was sent. Oh, let me see if I can find it. Whoa. Because I think there it is. It's from Dex. Before I bring it, look at this. Can we talk about the mouse in the room? There's me, Sonia, the little mouse, World Economic Forum, BBC News, NATO, Agenda 2030. Thank you, Dex, saying the thing is, the reality is we can never forget the elephant in the stakeholder capitalism world. Ask the mouse. And Dex sent us that. I love it too, Jan. Isn't it brilliant? Yeah, Mels, it's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I love it. Although I'm not quite sure if I would describe myself as a mouse, more of a lion. Just the way it goes. Yeah. Talking about being a lion, I just have to tell you, everybody, before I bring in our next guest. But when I decided, let me just remove that. When I decided to launch a third show on Wednesdays, and I chose the 12th of February, I didn't know what date that was. I mean, I knew it was the 12th of February, but I didn't know it's a full moon in Leo, and Leo is my sun sign. So we all have an annual full moon. And mine is on the 12th of February. And there could not be a more auspicious date for me to launch a third show. Literally couldn't. Full moons are all about kind of realizing and, stuff coming to the surface, things hitting fans, that sort of thing. And I have been saying to you for the last couple of months, we're going to introduce a third show. And then Kravos, I am a lioness. And then I chose the 12th of February, and I don't know why I chose it. Actually, I do. It was 1 and 2, which makes 3, and that's a number that I love. And that was the kind of thing that I gravitated towards. But when I discovered it was Leo full moon, I was like, yep, the universe is sending out a message. Yes, I love it too, Kath. I absolutely love it. Hannah says, hope people soon realize who Trump really is. I'm so disturbed by it all. Oh, Mrs. Pirate, 2 days before my son's 16th. Oh, happy birthday to your son. Happy birthday. Oh, is 3 your favorite number as well, Kath? Let the lions roar. Indeed. Really, I'm looking forward to the Wednesday show as well, Rob. And it'll be different. It'll be a different vibe because it's Wednesday early evening, 5 to 6 p.m. Right. I want to bring in an old friend. And I call him an old friend because he's somebody that I talked to for a long period of time on the very first breakfast show that I created. And he's a big favorite amongst people who know me. Let's bring him in, shall we? Here he is, the very lovely John Hendon, psychotherapist John Hendon. So lovely to see you, John. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you, Sonia. And I agree with the last comment. You are indeed a lioness.
I am indeed.
In journalism. And I owe you and your viewers and your supporters an apology because I've been working overseas far too much. And of course, I've not been available for Wake Up with Sonia Poulton and guests.
Well, we're glad to see you. Jay says, John, lovely to see you. Hello, John, says Michelle. Nice to see you again, says Peter. John's got his board. John, you've got your board. Are you going to be using it?
I will, yes. But it's hidden at the moment. Yeah, so I'm working on rectifying this overseas business, Sonia, and by 2030, I want to have 50% workshops overseas and 50% in the UK. So I'm delighted to talk to anyone who wants, in the healthcare, social care, emotional well-being settings who want my workshops on either suicide prevention or severe trauma recovery. So I can get this 50-50 by 2030.
John, your work I think, is groundbreaking, and it was you who introduced me to Joanna Moncrief, and Joanna Moncrief is finally getting mainstream media coverage.
Yes, at
And
long last. Yeah, delighted.
absolutely delighted. And Joanna Moncrief, you have to be careful because on YouTube they have their medical misinformation policy. But Joanna Moncrief comes down very firmly on the issue to do with depression and the ways that we are treating it these days.
Yes,
And
and yeah,
yes,
no one, Sonia, can get away from what she found in her research in 2022, which completely debunked this serotonin deficit theory of depression, which was drummed into me 40 years ago as a junior mental health worker.
Teresa says, John helped me save my daughter's life. Fact. And it is a fact. John, for those who are, because we have some new viewers who won't be familiar with you, John, but John, as I say, is a big favorite on my show. Big favorite. So let's crack on with what you're going to talk about with us today. And that is the importance of the family unit and how it's being decimated. Where would you like to start, John?
Yes, I mean, this is a sort of a side interest of mine. I'm normally, as your viewers know, I'm very much interested in emotional well-being and promoting that and exposing big pharma, especially big psycho pharma, for all the harm they've caused hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people worldwide. But I was, before I wrote my book on suicide prevention, I was very much involved in family partnership trusts, which looked at helping families grow and develop. It provided services to help parents deal with the difficult teenage years, deal with the terrible twos, and deal with children leaving the nest, you know, when their time came.
So hard.
So the family has been very much of interest to me, and the breakdown of the family in society. You know, talking to lots of other people, you know, what has it resulted in? Increased violence and alienation, reduced respect for people and property, increase in knife crime, selfish attitudes of what the state owes me rather than what can I do for society.
Absolutely. That's actually a huge shift that's taken place, isn't it? It's an entitled society that we have now, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the demonization of fathers, we can't rule that out. It's been quite shocking, actually. Men are treated as some sort of afterthought these days. Do you find?
Not only demonization of fathers, and you know, suicide prevention is one of my main interests, but also, and this is a BBC narrative, and I have no, I'm never short in coming forward in commenting on what the BBC does. They have consistently taken away role models for young men. So young men growing up, they have no role models on the media, and because they're denigrated or ridiculed. In fact, one BBC promoted series which was called, I think it was Beyond Paradise, based in, it was filmed in Looe in Cornwall. And it's about a police force in Cornwall, in Looe. And there are two officers there. One is an inspector who is shown as a complete buffoon in front of his sergeant, a female sergeant. And then there's a young constable, and he is constantly shamed and made to look like the village idiot. You know, and those two, you know, thinking back to police shows on BBC years ago, where you could, young men think, oh yes, that's, yeah, he's an upright member of society. I could, you know, he's a role model I could follow. You couldn't follow those two clowns. But the writer of that program has deliberately lampooned those two characters.
And you think they're deliberately lampooned because they're male?
Yes, I do, and I, you know, and this fits with the BBC narrative. And there was this might need to be checked out, but there was a former BBC journalist who was heard to say on another alternative media program that the BBC consider news items, which ones they're going to tell us about, and what their angle on the news item is, so whether it fits their narrative or not. And it's quite universally known now, isn't it, that the BBC has certain narratives that they portray on certain
They're
topics.
part of what's known as the Trusted News Initiative,
Yeah,
which is as far from trusted as it could be, really.
absolutely. And do they ever show a normal British family unit? No, they don't. And they always try and promote ideas that denigrate the family. So, you know, they're part of the problem. So no wonder, was it 1 million people have torn up their TV licenses over the last year, 18 months or something?
Oh, there's a significant decrease in TV licenses, which is why they're getting even more aggressive if you've signed out of the system to keep contacting you, which is what they keep doing with me. And I think, I mean, this is true. I agree with Place. That fathers are being depicted as feckless, useless, and dangerous, and there's a reason for that. And I think, I don't know if you saw that comment that came up before from Mel's. I think the Frankfurt School and cultural Marxism has a lot to answer for.
Yes,
John, what do you think? What do you think?
Absolutely right. You know, and the family is attacked in various ways. You know, we've mentioned about fathers being denigrated, parents seeing as untrustworthy to bring up children. Much better for the state to bring them up, which is a socialist Marxist idea.
Yeah.
And you know, and this movement to help to encourage 5-year-olds even to question their gender.
Yes.
Oh, you might be one of 75 different genders.
You're born in the wrong body.
Born in the wrong body. And this is, you know, okay, there are few people have gender dysphoria, but very small percentage. But, you know, there's this movement, isn't there? And you look behind people who are promoting these movements of attacking the family, you know, easier divorce as well, and other ways that the family unit is attacked. And you will find there's Marxist, Leninist, Trotskyite, Stalinist background to those people, because they don't want the family unit being key in society.
And before we get on to why that could be, I think it is interesting, isn't it? Because some people might say, but this is the natural evolution of humanity. Women are no longer dependent on the income of their husbands, so that they're not forced to stay in unsatisfactory relationships. We know, I'm sure you know, as a psychotherapist, certainly around wartime as one example, in that era, women were forced to stay in the family home because that was their only kind of source of support. But times have changed. But you're in no doubt whatsoever that that isn't what this is. This is a deliberate ploy to denigrate and decimate the family unit, a very deliberate ploy.
It is, and it runs alongside the Marxist, Leninist and Trotsky idea: attack national heroes, you know, like Churchill, put all of our history in a negative light. And I forget who said it. That was a nation who has no history, who has no past, has no future. So if you can denigrate the history as well, you know, those three thrust together is a way of bringing about revolution. But I mean, having worked in former Soviet countries, you know, Iron Curtain countries, you know, this socialist utopian society that these people are trying to move us towards, you know, interview people who were under that Soviet grip for all those decades and see what they say. You know, interesting, I was over there last year working in one of the countries, and I said to my host, who was a very intelligent person in charge of an agricultural organization, I can't remember what it was, and I said, what was it like living under communism? And he looked at me seriously, he said, we were happy. But his facial expression said it was terrible, it was miserable, and the whole society is built on a scaffold of lies, and you know, and is enforced by a ferocious secret police.
But what's interesting, I heard Putin in an interview a little while ago, and he's actually completely pro-family unit. He's actually really opposed to what's going on in the West in terms of like the sexualization of children. He actually seemed a lot more sorted than our leaders. What would you say to that?
Yes, he is. I've noticed that. I mean, although on the one hand, Putin wants to sort of restore the greater Russia idea and to restore aspects of the Soviet Union, he very much is is for the family unit, and he sees these threats in the way that I see them. You know, I'm not saying I'm agreeing with Putin on many things, but certainly he does seem to be saying so on that.
So where is this all leading to, John? And does this involve your whiteboard?
Well, yes, it does. And I mean, first, I'll say that the 6 main advantages of living together as a family.
Oh, go on, go for
Ready?
it.
They're not on the
Love it.
whiteboard, but I'll rattle these off.
Let's hear.
It's a safe environment for children to grow and develop. You know, they're protected from danger. And, you know, mother and father can protect their children from rape gangs and other predators that pick on children. A spirit of unity is promoted amongst family members. Thirdly, provision of basic needs, food, shelter and clothes, and that's much better provided by the family unit. And this research bears this out all the time, it's the best environment for children to benefit from education. You know, but parents reading to children, encouraging them in their studies, etc. And also development of good social skills and good skills for finding their place in society. And so much, don't we see so much these days of children brought up in dysfunctional or broken families where they struggle in the world of work, struggle to find a place in society. Mind you, as a caveat there, you know, I'm from a broken family, from a very dysfunctional family, and I had to learn all these new skills.
Same. I'm the single parent of
Yeah.
a single parent. But that's patterns as well, isn't it? Because we are
Yes.
learning, aren't we? I didn't necessarily learn about strong, solid relationships. And so I didn't necessarily zone in on people who could give me that. So, but it has to start somewhere. But also, just to be clear to everybody, we're not saying that you must stay in a relationship if it's violent or bad for you and the children.
Absolutely.
You have to get out of it, right?
Yes.
There's no good can come from that. But what John is saying, and I absolutely get his point, is that there is an active drive to end the family. And that's the difference, isn't it, John?
Yeah.
Continue.
It is. And, you know, we must fight back against that. And it's wonderful, actually, you know, looking on the internet, there are so many organizations that are encouraging family life and helping families get through. There's even one government one, and this is the cue or the segue into the chart here. So this is one I prepared earlier.
Oh, we love this.
Yeah, and so the top one here is Rob Parsons, an organisation, careforthefamily.org.uk. And Rob goes around the country giving talks to mainly church groups, but also other community groups. He's got 80 staff worldwide, and there's loads of resources on this site, Care for the Family.
Because we need to come back to that. We actually, I mean, that's the irony, isn't it, John, is we actively need to actually do something to keep the family together.
Yes, we do. And there are loads of tips and clues and ideas on the internet. You know, the government one, gov.uk/government/collections/family-hubs. This is about family hubs, and there are about 70 of these nationwide, and people can just drop in or phone and get information on how to be helped, which is great.
It is great, and people are often looking, and but it's a strange world, isn't it? If we're having to resort now to a situation where actual people have to form groups in order to be able to tell us to stay together as a family, which will tell us how much of an attack the family unit has been under. And of course, I mean, like going further on about that attack on the family group, it's not just about decimating, is it? Obviously, because what happens straight off the bat is the moment you have a fatherless family, it makes that family more vulnerable, doesn't it, to outside forces?
It does. And what happens, sadly, when the family break up, both parties are poorer. And it's interesting, as I go around and down the country, every town and city, and people will relate to this, on the outskirts, there's a 4 or 5 story solicitors firm or firms, several. In my town, there are 4 of these blocks, and on the front, experts in family law. they get rich in breaking up families. And the number of, because you know, as a couples therapist, I've worked with loads of couples. You know, one party goes to the solicitor, you know, perhaps after a row, and the solicitor says, well, you know, my experience is, you know, you've got to protect your own interests. I'll send a stiff letter, and that inflames it. And then that stiff letter comes back. The only winner is the solicitors, the lawyers' firms.
We have to stop this. What about our own government? What are they doing regarding keeping the family together, John?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it does seem this was a conservative initiative, the family hubs, and it does seem they're still continuing. But I don't get a strong message from this government that they are pro the family unit. They haven't, unless I've missed something, they haven't come out and said we will support the family as a matter of policy.
Their history doesn't suggest that. The involvements of Keir Starmer, what his involvement, what groups he's involved with, they're very sort of anti-family, all about big state. And I think I want to come back to the point that you made about how the state wants to take over parenting of our children. That's a very real thing, isn't it?
It is, and that's worrying, you know, even from, you know, encouraging children to go into nursery when they can barely crawl, you know, so that they can be brainwashed into certain ways. Okay, they, you know, that's just a part of it, but there's an opportunity there for the state to get at the children against the interests of the parents, because it's parents that should be bringing up children, building those relationships, not play schools and early years. Although they have a key role to play. And of course, these days, you know, both parents are out to work, and there's little choice in some cases.
And I think it is fair to say, without us being accused of anything, but the sort of long-term prognosis of children brought up in kind of like broken homes is generally, as you've already said, sort of less of a positive outcome for the most part than those who are brought up in the stability. But obviously you can work against that. I'm very proud of the development of my daughter, for example, because I put everything I humanly could. But interestingly, John, and I want your take on this, I didn't raise her on my own. At the time we moved back from London to Gloucestershire, Cirencester, where all my family are. I come from a big family, so it literally was sort of a village raising my child. So that can make a difference as well, can't it? When you have
it can. I mean, you know, just comment on you know, you and I have both done our very best for our children, you know, against the odds, against our backgrounds and what we learnt from our parents. But there are other organizations, like, for instance, the extended families living together, where grandparents are involved, you know, it is terrific. And of course, 200 years ago, it would be aunties and uncles and grandparents who lived just round the corner.
That is an important point right there, is that the communities have been broken up because families used to live very close together. You're absolutely right. So that in itself, sort of globalism has stepped in, hasn't it, and told people you live wherever you want to. Whereas it was formerly that families stayed together for exactly the reasons you're highlighting. And that is there's safety in numbers for one of them, right? Safety in numbers. John, as an aside, what do you think about, and this may be completely against your remit, but there's a comment here which has made me think about it. What do you think about situations like surrogacy? Does that have any impact on what you're talking about?
Surrogacy, this is where someone...
we essentially rent a womb of a mother.
Yes, you hear so many stories about that, don't you? But
that feels like the decimation of a family unit as well, doesn't it? Where complete strangers can just go to a far-flung corner of the world and pick up a baby that has no relation to them whatsoever. So it's like we've turned everything on its head. We live in an inverted world, John.
We do, yes. I'm very unhappy about that surrogacy idea, because, you know, if the mother who is involved in the surrogacy then goes on to have a family life, and then that offspring later wants to come and meet them, and there are stories, aren't there, of families breaking up, you know, because the father didn't know that this child existed or these children existed, you know. So I feel very unhappy about that idea.
So, John, let me ask you this. Regardless of whatever political power is in charge, whether that's so-called left or so-called right, is it a case now that the dominant culture, the dominant Western culture, is very much far left socialism and Marxist? Is that the case?
It does seem to be moving that way. And, they're not all straightforward Marxist Leninists or Trotskyists. Lenin coined a term, didn't he? Useful idiots. For people who are promoting communist and Marxist ideas, but they dress themselves up as perhaps liberals in some way or other, but they're serving the same purpose. And I think we need to call these people out, and say, look, we want a stable society. We have a future. We want people to prosper. And the research shows that the family unit, okay, given there are some difficulties sometimes with violence and complete discord or whatever, generally speaking, the family is the best environment to bring up children. And they prosper, and then they have families and bring up children themselves. So I think, we need to have stronger government lead on this, and funding of these organizations.
We've got so many funding capabilities that are invested in tearing the family apart, right?
Yes.
And what I've said often is, obviously there are some situations where there are some parents who simply cannot parent their children, and the children must be removed for their safety. But
Yes.
for the most part, John, the most part, what we should do is intervene in order to be able to keep the family together. That's my position. That is achievable, isn't it?
It is achievable. And, as a couples therapist, I used to see couples, where the complete, split, and they were going to the solicitors, get divorced, etc. And we looked at a common way, and we kept the lawyers away from them. And we looked at how they can apologize and forgive and repent and repair and build trust. And couples got back together, and the children were delighted, of course. And, again, more money into those services. Why should they be voluntary only, or by contributions? These are important services which need properly funding.
JT, I think, hits the nail on the head of what you've been saying. The reason they cannot parent is generational destruction. And this has been going on for a long time. When do you think it all kind of kicked off? Was it the 60s or before?
I think it was the 60s, wasn't it? The free love movement, and, anything goes, do what you feel when you will like, etc. And that generational point is a key one,
It is.
60s and 70s, children from broken families were then becoming parents themselves, and then they children and out of wedlock, not in loving relationship, so parentless children producing more parentless children. So how can you pass on that guidance and moral values and discipline and what it's like to be a responsible citizen?
Yeah, and I don't take offense at that, because I know, first of all, that I was as great a parent as I humanly could be.
Yes.
And I wasn't without my problems, but I don't take offense to that. I take your point. And as I said to you, I believe it's patterns. It is absolutely patterns, because I didn't learn about being in a long-term relationship. That wasn't part of my formative lessons.
Sure. And the great news from that, Sonia, is that, like you, like me, we can all learn these new skills now. And we can break this the comment that your viewer put up there. We can break this generational link and get it right again, as you have and as I have.
Yeah, we need to return to that. John, is there anything more you'd like us to know before you leave us today?
No, I think that about covers it. I mean, it's a huge topic, isn't it? And just one final point. There's another little website here, The Merry Mama. And there's loads of tips in there about how to be a good mum, how to be, the pitfalls and how to get over them, etc., challenges and how to deal with them. So the merrymama.co.uk is a great website.
Have you got one of your books to hand, John?
I've got both, actually.
Let's see them. Let's see them, because I'll put a link in the description to them.
Oh, thank you, Sonia, very much. There's this is the second edition now, Preventing Suicide, the Solution-Focused Approach. And this is now been translated into Japanese, into Russian, and it's about to come out in Korean, and later this year in simplified Chinese.
Wow.
Which
We
is
love
terrific.
that. We love that. Spreading the good message. We love
And
that.
this one, you've seen this before, What It Takes to Thrive, Techniques for Severe Trauma Recovery. This has 130 odd techniques on dealing with triggers,
Practical,
flashbacks,
accessible techniques.
Yeah, I'm delighted to say it's now translated into Ukrainian, and by Easter there will be a Russian edition out as well.
We love to hear that, John. Love to hear that. Thank you for joining us this morning. It is Jackie. So good to see John. Come back soon, says Jackie. Right. Indeed. Yeah, stop being a stranger, John. We don't approve of that, okay? We're going to hold you to it this year, 2025. Everybody, this is the very wonderful John Hendon. Take good care of yourself, John. Happy weekend to you.
And
lovely.
You, Sonia.
How lovely is it to see him again, people? Absolutely lovely to see him. Thank you, John. That says Peter and JT and Stephen. Lots to digest, John, says Judith. Many thanks. Excellent handbook, says Teresa. Teresa, that Thrive, and I've forgotten the title already. I actually have a copy of it. And when I was going through a particularly dark period, about 4 years ago, I turned to it and it helped me. It helped me. He is a fantastic guest and we love him so much. Many thanks, John, says Vanessa. And so say all of us. First of all, big shout out to Neil on X, Neil Reynolds. Yes, I'm talking about you. He said, for those who've been messaging me for more info, get involved, support where you can. And it's join the raw milk movement. Help safeguard the future of raw milk. You know what's been happening, right? That in America, they've been culling. They've literally been commandeering whole farms in order to get to the raw milk, particularly amongst the Amish community. And Neil is, he tweeted about this. Raw milk is banned in Scotland. Is it, JT? Is it really? What? Get out of here. We learn something new every day. Why could that possibly be? Anyway, the raw milk movement, you can find out more about it at supporters.rawmilkproducers.co.uk. And as this flyer says, raw milk is always in the spotlight. And if regulators have concerns, it could provoke a ban on selling it. This threat is real. It's already happened in Scotland. There you go. I didn't read the full flyer. Exactly that. Exactly that. That's life, but not as we know it. Sonia, I've been looking into the Lockerbie case. Have you done anything on it? I might have a few years ago, but happy to, because obviously problematic, but happy to look into it again. No problem. Raw milk is ace, says Sal Misra. Oh, yes. Gates thinks he is a farmer now. Do indeed. So good work, Neil. I will put the link in the description so people can find out more. I think raw milk is also banned in Australia too. Anyone know? Kravos, what? Wait, what? So let me see. That's Scotland. Possibly Australia, certain parts of America. Do you know what this is all about, right? Gates is a plonker. Someone is milking this issue, says Cavan. Indeed they are, outrageously so. I want to talk about Aldi. Aldi, the supermarket chain, super cheap. And Shikesh contacted me. He's also known as Healing the Silence in our comments. And he contacted me earlier this week, said, have you heard of this story? Aldi has trialled charging customers £10 to enter their store and then taken off their final bill. It doesn't make any sense if they are refunding it. Yeah, and it takes a few days to come through. But anyway, I looked into this. So basically what it is, he sent me the link. And it's all over the press this week, right? All over the press this week that Aldi in Greenwich, South East London, charges you £10 to get in. So obviously that's all part of the kind of, it would be part of digital cash. That's the whole point of it. Anyway, I wrote to Aldi Press, as you do, and the press officer contacted me, said, can we have a conversation? And this was yesterday, so I said yes. So he rang me and we had a conversation, and he said he has no idea why this has only surfaced now, because that store started in 2022 and they have not had any plans to further it. They have no plans to further it. It was kind of a one-off. It was an experiment. And I said, yeah, but it excludes people from entering the store unless they can pay digitally. Well, yeah, that's true. And I asked, what happens if people want to shop, but they don't have £10? Well, they can't go in that shop. They cannot go in that shop in Greenwich. And I asked him what other stores they had planned to roll it out to. He said, none, absolutely none whatsoever. And I asked, why did you choose Greenwich? And he said, well, because it's kind of like very accessible to many Londoners. Well, so is all parts of London. They chose Greenwich for a very specific reason, of which I still don't know the answer to. But basically, the idea is that it's a checkout free store, and you literally cannot enter Aldi in Greenwich unless you first of all pay £10. You have to pay £10 on your phone or on your card. Yes, but it's a one-off because it didn't work. And that's the thing that I think is really important. Thank you, Kash. I didn't see all the headlines, but honestly, people, if you search it now, you'll see that almost every newspaper has written about it as if it's only just started this week, when it's actually 3 years old. It's 3 years old, right? Hope people boycott Aldi, says Peter. Well, the press officer was very keen to say to me, look, the thing is this is not, and also pointed out that this is not the first store to charge shoppers before letting them in. As one example, in London's XL Centre, there is the Market Express, which is actually powered by Amazon's Just Walk Out tech, also requires a £10 pre-authorization payment. And the problem about this, first of all, it is exclusionary. It will exclude people, and not least those who don't have their digitals on a phone or don't have a card and have cash. They can't get into that store. And what about some people go shopping, they don't have a tenner to spare. They only have enough to buy the bare essentials of what they're going in the shop to buy. Cavan has now found out what PayPal is. Cavan, where have you been? What rock have you been living under? What on earth? Stephen, London is terrible for card-only payments. It truly is. It truly is. I don't know if it's the worst of the worst, but it's pretty bad. But anyway, the bottom line is this, and that is Aldi publicist was very keen to point out to me this was a one-off experiment. They are not rolling it out anywhere else. And so there you go. We shall see, shan't we, people? We shall see. Because if he lied to me, he will find that I'm not quite the nice, lovely individual that he discovered yesterday. No cows, no cheese. Think about it. What blue and orange and I see. Markson said, what's blue and orange and full of an oldie bag? People are not happy. London pioneering the hellish AI future anti-humanism. Ian, absolutely. And you know what it is, people? It is Friday, which means it's Cash Friday, even though I can't actually find any cash on my desk, which is fairly outrageous. So there you are, Shikesh. I got that question answered for you. They say no more. No more, no more, no more. And a big shout out to Rest in Peace for Nutmeg on X, one of my favorite accounts. Absolutely love that account. And said the Mercury Theatre in Essex has been accused of platforming a band that sung about kicking TERFs, TERFs being the derogatory term for women who have opposed the whole gender lunacy, and sung about kicking TERFs and lesbian porn to children as young as 5 and allowing men to use its women's toilets. One of the board directors at Mercury Theatre is the managing editor of ITV News, and that is Matt Brindley. Matt is managing editor at ITV News, and I think somebody needs to have a word with Matt. What are they doing singing about lesbian porn and attacks on females to children? Anybody want to tell me that? Outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. And so look out for him, Matt Brindley. Well done. Rest in peace for Nutmeg. You're brilliant. We allowed the British establishment to take over our high street. Every day is a cash cow for me. Oh, wait, what? James, do you always use cash? Good on you. So yeah, check that out, people. Matt Brindley, managing editor at ITV News, is a board director at Mercury Theatre, which is allowing lesbian porn to children as young as 5. That's literally kind of what John has just been talking about, right? It is. We know it. I use full fat milk. They're still on milk. Right. I want to talk about something that is deeply upsetting and it needs to be talked about. I want to bring up an image first of all. There's 3 images actually there. And this is the Bachi Bazai. The Bachi Bazai is the dancing boys of Afghanistan. I watched a documentary this week. I couldn't watch it from beginning to end in one sitting. It was so shockingly horrendous. And what it is permitted and sanctioned child abuse that is going on in Afghanistan. Let me talk you through this. I'm going to put a link in the description to the documentary. It is actually shocking. It's available on YouTube. I feel absolutely sick that this practice is still so acceptable in Afghanistan that the pimp and abusers involved don't even mind being on camera. And I talk about, so the man at the top is somebody who buys these dancing boys. And when I call them dancing boys, so what they are is generally boys of about 11 years old, and they come from very impoverished families. And this man at the top of this image has spotted a boy on the side of the road, and he goes to a shop, and you can see in the bottom image, he's purchased the boy, and the boy is, I think, called Sharif, and taken out, you censored his face, and he's 11 years old, and he's just been purchased by this pimp to go and dance for men in private clubs. And you can actually see in the bottom picture, I don't know if you can see, but there's a boy kind of carrying a barrel, and he knows what's happening with this little 11-year-old. Yeah, be prepared, folks. Yeah, this is triggering, right? It's awful. That's no problem, Jan. See you later. Purchased is slavery. It is slavery. There's no getting around it. Yeah, what the hell is wrong with these people? It gets worse. I'm afraid it gets worse, Judith. So this is a child who has just been purchased. And this is the child being prepared by the man who's just purchased him. No, this isn't the child. This is Imam, who has been a dancing boy for 4 years. So since he was 11 years old and purchased by this man. And this man is dressing him up now, ready to dance for these men who are sat around a small room. And this man says, you'll take their breath away. And this man is saying to this 15-year-old about how he's dressed up in such a way that he makes this man want to explode. And this is all like permitted. It's all permitted. And so what happens is the pimp master is called the Bachi Baz, and he forces the Batcher to dress in women's clothes and dance for entertainment. And as I say, poverty is actually a key factor in this. Often the boys come from incredibly impoverished and vulnerable situations, such as street children, mainly without relatives or abducting from their families. In some cases, families are on the brink of starvation. They may sell their young sons to a Bachi Baz or have him adopted, quote unquote, for food and money. Now, I come from poverty. I come from poverty to such a degree as a child that my family absolutely had to rely on me getting at least one cooked meal a day, free school meals. So we were really impoverished. I don't remember anybody in my family suggesting that I should be sold. There's a certain mentality that allows this, right? And Marco wants to know what causes these parasites to be so sick. These children having their innocence taken away. Yeah, it's actually really shocking. I was watching it. I was just, I was beside myself watching it. Let me just bring up, have I got some more on this? No, actually, I probably haven't, but I don't need to because you've got the picture, right? And here's where it gets really well, it's all grotesque. It's all absolutely grotesque. But aunts owning a dancing boy is a status symbol in Afghanistan. There is absolutely no shame attached to it. This man, Mr. Pimp, has 2 small children. And at the end of the evening, after this boy has finished dancing, he takes the boy back home with him. After he's already told the boy, the way you're dressed makes me want to explode. I can't. And he goes on to say, as he's dressing this boy, you'll take their breath away. You make me want to lose control. These people, this is savagery. And in Afghanistan, it's supposed to be illegal, but there are literal videos of these boys not only being recruited, but dancing. And you know why? Oh, I do want to find this picture because I think this really gives you a clue as to why it's still going on. Find this picture, Poulton. Find it. Friday. Where is it? I'll find it. I'll find it. So here's the thing, right? Is authorities the world over, as we know, are turning a blind eye to child abuse. And I can absolutely answer why it is happening in most territories. Okay. And that is because people in positions of power are child abusers. Okay, the Bachi Bazi was outlawed during the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan period. Nevertheless, it is still widely practiced. And it's widely practiced because if I can bring in this image, this will explain it to you. Find it, Poulton, find it. Your viewers demand it. Let me, picking up. Oh, that might be it. No, it's not. Yes, it is. This one. I want to bring in this one. And this will explain it to you. This man, this will tell you everything you need to know about what I'm talking about here. Okay. This man that I'm bringing in, his name is Officer Khan. Officer Khan's job is to protect street kids, right? Here he is. He's actually, my job is to pick up street children. And then in the middle picture is an image of Officer Khan at a wedding, which features these dancing boys, which is in the bottom shot. So the man responsible for safeguarding the children is almost certainly picking up these children to be dancing boys. Officer Khan is absolutely the expert pimp. And Marco, I do not rule out the fact that there may be religious elements to this, right? Absolutely, I don't rule any of that out. They're all complicit. Yes, Officer Khan goes to the shows. Yes, he does. My job is to pick up street children. I mean, honestly, with people like that who are supposed to be protecting and safeguarding children, who needs enemies? Frankly, who needs enemies? And it is actually quite shocking, frankly. They use force and coercion to drag in some of these boys. And, you know, when you watch a wedding, which is actually full of men and you can't see any women at all at this wedding, and there's all these adult men standing around watching young boys dressed up as women dancing, you know it's perverse. It's Cavan, you're naughty. But I take your point. It's just heartbreaking what happens to children in the world. Thousands go missing in UK also each year. Mels, it's all around the world. And my point is that not any one of us are in a position where we can say we are protecting and safeguarding children. And one of the reasons that this is allowed to continue in Afghanistan is it has absolutely been acknowledged that some of the men involved in Bachi Bazai are powerful and well-armed warlords. Well, it's the same all way around the world, right? You can call them whatever you want, but at the end of the day, Western politicians are enabling child abuse, and some of them are part of it and have been for a very long time, in the same way as they are in Afghanistan. And that's just perversion all the way around the world. We need to protect children. My mother never let me out of her sight. God bless her. God bless her indeed. I can't watch it, Mrs. Pirate. Sadists use children that are powerless. Yes, they do. And the thing is, what they do is obviously these are very, very vulnerable families. But nonetheless, I do struggle to understand how anybody could sell their child knowing what's going to happen, or sell their child full stop. And here's the irony. In Afghanistan, to be part of a Bachi Bazai, it actually carries death penalty. But who was charged? The boys were being charged. The boys were being charged, not the pimps, not the men watching. The boys were being charged. This reminds me how in Islamic republics, when women are involved in out of marriage relationships, it's the women who get beaten and stoned, not the men, not the married men. And yes, it's heartbreaking. I'm sorry, Stephen. I just felt the need to draw this to people's attention because I'm not sure that everybody knows about it. And as I say, many experts say, you know, poverty is a contributing factor, extreme gender segregation, because in Afghanistan, like I say, if you look at a wedding and it's full of men and they're watching young boys dance, something's wrong. Where's the wife? Who did the groom get married to? Right? Yes, exactly. And they say that war is also a main driver. I disagree. I would say it's perverts in power. That is the main driver here. We have to know these things. We do, Judith. We absolutely do. Right. I want to move on from that because I've all made you sufficiently sick. And I'm very sorry about that. Very sorry about that. Anybody know who Sam Kimball is? Mickey is one of our viewers, wrote to me saying, "Dear Sonia, can you give a shout out to Sam Kimball on Friday? He's in court today at 12:30, not sure where. He's been filming migrant hotels and exposing them on YouTube. His family have been harassed by police, and Sam arrested recently and could face prison for exposing the hotels." Anybody know about Sam Kimball? I don't know about him. I did watch a couple of his videos though. But there you go, Mickey. I gave that shout out. And if anybody knows that about what's going on with Sam Kimball, please tell me. Please tell me. And I heard from some of our lovely viewers regarding geoengineering, because, you know, we cover geoengineering around here. And why do we cover geoengineering? We cover geoengineering because mainstream media won't. And mainstream media won't because they're complicit. And I have 2 images. Let me bring up the other one for you. And these are from Jane and Anita. Thank you both, lovely ladies. I do very much appreciate you sending your images in for me. Let's see, Jane. Let's go with Jane's first because it's right in front of me. This is Jane's. Jane said, another day of the same. Rarely a day they don't spray. Now, Jane sent me this yesterday, I think. So this was yesterday because I see people in the comments are saying there's not geoengineering going on this morning. But so Jane said, rarely a day they don't spray. Silver skies, then grey looming, no doubt. And Jane really enjoyed the conversation on Monday involving Ingrid. She said a joy to see a difference of opinion because if you remember, Ingrid and I disagreed about Margaret Thatcher. And but I didn't beat her up and she didn't beat me up and I didn't eject her from the show because we are allowed to disagree. Thank you, Jenny. I appreciate that. And so that's Jane's image. And this is, let me find Anita's image. Jeepers. And what's interesting about this, Anita said, I was going through my old photos and look what I found. 25th of June, 2015. That's in Fleet, Hampshire. I don't think I knew what I was taking a photo of then. But that's a busy sky, right? 10 years ago. 10 years ago. So today is overcast. Is it, GC? Well, that would explain it. What on earth are they spraying? Seen it, Steve. Seen it. And our Christmas special, I interviewed, anybody help me? Because my memory is literally leaving me for certain things. But yeah, thank you for that, Anita. And proof positive, if it were needed, that they've been spraying for an awful long time. Decades, in fact. Decades. Very interesting that Jay-Z has dropped his lawsuit threats. Now, this is interesting because I noted this before. Often, Jay-Z was sued as part of the Sean P. Diddy Combs lawsuit. It's claimed that Jay-Z and a currently unidentified female celebrity B repeatedly sexually assaulted a 13-year-old girl in 2000. And that also, it's claimed, involved Sean Diddy Combs and Jay-Z. Well, Jay-Z immediately took defensive action. Now, one of the things that you will know through history is you can tell a lot about somebody the way that they conduct their litigation. And somebody like Jimmy Savile stopped all lawsuits from starting. He, like The Sun, as one example, wanted to publish that Jimmy Savile had been on Jersey at an orphanage, and he immediately issued, law threats and everything. And The Sun never published it. And then it surfaced a picture, an actual image of Jimmy Savile on the lawn at Haute de la Garenne. Right. So we know that people use litigation as a defensive action. And that is what Jay-Z did. Well, anyway, he's now dropped his uber defensive lawsuit against Tony Busby, the lawyer who has multiple Diddy lawsuits and one where Jay-Z is implicated. So this is going to get interesting now. And so Jay-Z is obviously making shifts in strategy. It's been a big week for the Carter family because obviously you had Beyonce dominating the Grammys and winning the Country Album of the Year award. Such gaslighting, it's appalling. And then Jay-Z is also involved with Kendrick Lamar, who also dominated the Grammys for the halftime shows that is coming up this week as well. So we shall see what happened. It would appear that they've decided to slightly change their strategy. The lawsuit is still going ahead. There have been more charges added to Sean Diddy Combs. At the moment, he's set for a May trial, but we shall see. And as I say, it's a completely different approach. And, the thing about Jay-Z, despite not being the great artist they have portrayed him to be, is a man who has risen because of the company he has kept. And the fact, as many people believe, Jay-Z knows where all the bodies are hidden. He does. He does. Better believe it. Better believe it. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that particular one develops. And because his defensive strategy was really to attack Tony Busby, the lawyer who was issuing all these lawsuits. Well, that already is very questionable. Back home, I was contacted by a man called, if I can find you, where have I got your stuff? Malcolm Lewis. Malcolm Lewis is an artist. And I wonder if I can bring in some of his art. He has an art exhibition. Here it is. And Malcolm is one of our viewers. Good morning to you, Malcolm. Well done with your art exhibition in Newman Street in London. I worked in Newman Street in London, and it's the Global Art Confluence. And it started last Thursday. It was initially just supposed to be until the 6th of February, but it looks like it's going to go past that now. And that is at 73 Newman Street, London, W1. And I asked Malcolm about the inspiration for these. And he said, I actually got the inspiration to do the emoji pieces. Let me read it. At the start of COVID, when people were going crazy over the toilet rolls, etc. I just saw another side to people and realized how selfish normal people can be. So I decided to do a range of emojis where you see the real person underneath the fake outer shell, which can all too often look kind and considerate. I've done some New World Order and a COVID Gestapo police art pieces, but they got taken down off Instagram. And the rusty art piece, I get my inspiration from volcanic rocks, but like to mix organic shapes and textures with an industrial finish, as you'd never normally get an organic looking material in a rusty finish. I love it, Malcolm. More power to your elbow. Marco wants to know if it's available to buy. I don't know, Marco, but I'll put a link in the description where you can contact Malcolm. Does that sound okay? Does that sound okay? We love the sound of that already. I love the sound of that already. Right. Moving on. Just to say, they finally had enough of Drake. They finally had enough of Drake in Hollywood. And the reason I can say that is because the Grammys this week, we talked a lot about the Grammys this week, didn't we, in relation to Whitney Houston and the fact that she died during a Grammy weekend. Over the last year, artists, rappers, Drake and Kendrick Lamar, they've had sort of like the diss battles to end all diss battles. And I talk as a former hip hop journalist. And but Kendrick Lamar is actually the absolute clear winner of this. And one of the reasons I say that is because Drake was the Grammys boy and Kendrick Lamar was the Grammys boy this year, because there is a great deal of concern about Drake and his propensity to form relationships with young females. I would just say that. And showbiz is rancid. Absolutely. That was very cool stuff, wasn't it? Very cool stuff, Malcolm, indeed. Showbiz is rancid. It absolutely is. But Kendrick Lamar is their new man. He's their new man. And obviously his song is actually defamatory because Drake has not been convicted of anything, but he clearly accuses Drake of being a pedophile in it. And I've never liked Drake. I've always felt that he was like Jay-Z, actually given tremendous prominence, actually, for not being as talented as many artists who was just still on the street, still out there on the street. But I'm in no doubt whatsoever that Hollywood is now done with Drake. And the thing about the Grammys is it's very ritualistic. It's a ceremony, and they've now crowned their new person. That's what they've done. They've now crowned their new person. And actually, Drake has taken legal action against Universal Music, saying they should never have released Not Like Us in the first place, which accuses Drake of all manner of things, including clear child abuse. And the thing is, Kendrick Lamar and Drake used to be good friends. They did. I mean, they started out collaborating on Drake's 2011 album, Take Care, and also on Lamar's 2012 track, Poetic Justice. But you know how it goes. And so they've now got this huge big beef. But when they were playing Not Like Us at the Grammys, you could literally hear like this, and you see people like Beyonce and Taylor Swift, they're all cheering. And that's what I say, is because obviously these are all assets of the American music industry, of Hollywood, and they know who they're now crowning. And so Drake has been removed from the stage. That's what's happened. Drake's been removed from the stage. That's what's happened. And I'm going to remove him too. Told you last week, the word is Sky is going bankrupt, and it's already started with the departure of Kay Burley. Kay Burley was at Sky News for 36 years. She's now departed. That's a sinking ship, people. I'm telling you straight up. It's obvious, Simon. Handlers are be handling. Yes, or smoke and mirrors, Penny. Yeah, it is. So Kay Burley is now left. And what else do I have to tell you before? Thank you for this week's donators, by the way. Thank you so much. Natalie, Catherine, Ian, Mark, Paul, and Anthony. I appreciate each and every one of you. Every single donation that is received around here is so gratefully appreciated, not least because it obviously enables me to show up Mondays and Fridays, and now bring in a further day on Wednesdays. But also I want to build a team around me. So all of this money goes into the Wake Up with Sonia Poulton pot. And I did say I would have an alternative way that that you could, because people said I don't want to use PayPal, and that's absolutely right. Anyway, I tried to open an alternative bank account this week, and actually I didn't have the correct digital stuff in order to be able to do it. Thank you, Marco. I appreciate that very much. Thank you so much. Every bit is appreciated. Truly, it all goes to good use, and I truly appreciate it. Marlena, you are an incredibly generous person, and you have been, and I truly appreciate you all. That's right, Steve. Stop watching GB News now. Well, that is going to close before the end of the year. Mark my words. Mark my words, people. Mark my words. And just to say, I do truly appreciate you all, every single donation, everything going on around here. And we're looking into memberships on YouTube because I've been asked about that. And I'm not sure how straightforward that is. And actually, I've been advised that I need to be careful about that because there is an active attack on me on YouTube. There are a number of people who are trying to close down this YouTube account of mine, even though we are approaching 100,000 subs. If you haven't subscribed, that is another way to help us build. Please, algorithms and all that. That's all right, Crafty Kim. It's absolutely fine. Love you lots. Love you lots. I appreciate you too, Marlena. I do. Mikey, I made a video about how GB News is controlled opposition. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but I'll put a link in the description. Right, we are rounding off the end of the show. Thank you. I really appreciate all of you. Lovely, lovely words. You're very, very kind. And thank you for all your donations, truly. Right, we're rounding off the edge of the show. Thank you, Ficus. That's really generous of you. Right. First of all, I know there's loads of graph artists out there who watch. And I would just like to say to you, because some people send me their designs, but I'm looking for a design that I can use, and we can use different ones each week if necessary. For this section, the final say. I want to call it the final say, unless you in the comments or you in the live chat or you in the comments want to give me another name for what we talk about at the end. And as you know, it's about bringing it back to us because we cover so much negativity in this world that we have to bring it back to us because we are the power. And today's final set. So if you want to send me a design, I will use it to illustrate this point, and I can easily change it week on week if 100 graph artists want to send me a design. Final say. Final say. Thank you, Emma. Beautiful weekend to you too. Final thoughts. Oh, Teresa says, oh, final thoughts. Okay, final thoughts, final say. Well, graph artists out there, you've got an eye for this, right? What works better, final say or final thoughts? Tell me. Yes, Judith, it's a marathon around here. So the last thing we want to talk about is why taking one step at a time will help you climb that mountain. Right? People get overwhelmed with big tasks, don't they? They sit down, they think, oh my God, this is something that's going to take me so long, whether it's a project you're working on or whether it's cleaning the house or whatever. My thing has always been to break them down into small, manageable chunks, whether that's a project you want to start or a deadline you want to complete. Each time you meet a goal, it will strengthen your resolve to get the job done. Even if it's something similar, like I want to start a regular journal, even doing one line sends a message of intent to the universe. And as I said earlier, next week, we're heading to a full moon in my sign of Leo. This is the full moon to achieve your dreams. What's weird about this, as I say, is that I chose the full moon without knowing it was the full moon to launch our Wednesday show. And this is the kind of synergy I love. This touches my heart. This is the stuff that I like. And this is the stuff that I appreciate. And remember, the thing is that, as I say, some people, they get overwhelmed when they've got a big task in front of them or a big project. So one of the things that I do, for example, I've been working on a documentary since 2019. I like end thoughts as well, Kravos. I've been working on documentaries since 2019. It's about the whole kind of trans issue, right? And I interviewed over 40 people about it, including very well-known names from Graham Linehan to Posey Parker, etc. And I've been working on that ever since. And sometimes I've been completely overwhelmed by it because it's such a huge task. And it took me, I think, 5+ years to make my film Paedophiles in Parliament. So this is not unusual. It can take documentary filmmakers a very long time to pull together a film. But this film has really, it's taken its toll on me. And so what I decided was that I would keep working on it at least an hour a week to finally bring it together. And what I've started doing is I'm working on it more than that. I'm working on it more than that. So what happens is I sit down and I'm like, oh my God, I've got the Final Cut Pro in front of me and all of these files. And it's like, I'm not sure what to do. And so what I told myself was I was going to sit down and only do an hour. On that first day that I told myself I was going to sit down and do an hour, I did 3.5 hours straight. And it didn't feel like a hardship. You won't watch it. I see. Is the link in for the documentary? Not yet, but it will be. Disturbing. It is disturbing. Sorry about that, but I do cover stuff that is disturbing, which is why I always end on a positive note like this of empowerment. That's why. Remember the Chinese proverb, right? A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And nobody can say that any better as far as I'm concerned. That is just like so explicit. And that is the reality. You literally have to, when whatever is hard for you. And that is literally anything, whether that's a project or a job or a relationship that you're struggling with. Take it chunk by chunk. I really love this person, but I can't spend too much time with them. Fine, spend half an hour with them then. Thank you, Jay. I really appreciate that. And believing matters. Of course it does. Believing is so important. What is it they say? Whether you believe you can or can't, both is correct. Thank you, Kim. The hardest part is starting. And that is the reality. And that is why don't see the mountain in front of you, right? Just see the little foothill in the mountain. You're going to put your foot in that, right? Remember what Martin Luther King said from his I Have a Dream speech. He said, you don't have to see the whole staircase. Just take the first step. And that is what we're dealing with round here. Wait, Zoe, you on later? Wait. Better late than never. What's going on? Crazy Bunny, are you on later? Tell me and I can quickly plug it. So thank you. A journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. It does. Time is an illusion. Time waits for no one. Catherine, that's very interesting. Very interesting there. That is why I am a brilliant rider, says Randy. We've seen your horse, Randy. Loved you all indeed. Thank you, everybody, for contributing to today's show. All of our wonderful guests, all of our wonderful live chatters. Aren't they fabulous? They pull no punches, and that includes holding me to account, and I have no problem with that at all. I think it's so important. Healing the silence. Did you hear what I had to say about Oldie? Because it was you who very kindly informed me what was being said. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for every single donation and contribution. Please keep subscribing. Let's get us to 100,000 subscribers, please. And thank you, whether you're watching live or whether you're watching on playback, whether you're watching here on YouTube or there on X or on Spotify or Rumble. I appreciate each and every one of you. I will, of course, see you on Monday.
Time to wake up with Sonia Poulton.
See you Monday, peeps. Thanks to my wonderful mods as ever. Have a wonderful weekend. Take excellent care of yourself. Lots of love.